Welcome back to the Bible Forum. It's Warren Sprouse. This is part two of our introductory information, things that I think you need to know as life unfolds in front of us. In my home state of New Jersey, in a township called Manchester, and I racked my brain to remember where Manchester County is. I believe it is kind of in the center section of the state, but I'm not sure. But the Manchester County, New Jersey, has just inaugurated a new 911 system. This is a system that automatically commandeers your cell phone, or I should say the cell phone's camera, when you call. You call the dispatcher can now see whatever it is you're talking about. You hold your phone up and point it at the person or the event that's taking place, and the dispatcher can now see it in real time. Now, this is a definite aid to police. If it's an individual, they have a description of the individual that's permanent. They can freeze it later on and blow it up and look at all the detail and all the rest. It also helps the police, the fire, the rescue, whatever, to find the area where this problem is, what it looks like before they ever arrive. But the question becomes, what else might it do? We're being told that this is a limited connection with our phones, but it might become something else one day. What about convicted felons and worse who might be able to get a hold of this information? What about angry wives and husbands during a particularly destructive divorce? The list is endless as we move forward. We now have not just the words, we have the sights and the sounds. We can see it in real time. Can you say 666? It's in there somewhere. A California state assemblyman has proposed a bill that would force every public or private school in California to place a phone number of a Planned Parenthood facility or similar clinic on that student's identifications. So that as the student has need, they can look at their ID and they'll immediately have the phone number for the nearest Planned Parenthood or similar clinic. The bill is called AB 624. It would take effect on July 1st of next year and require that schools place on every ID for grades 7 through 12 a sexual assault hotline number, a domestic violence hotline number, and a sexual or reproductive health hotline number. A federal appeals court Tuesday upheld an Ohio law that strips Planned Parenthood of state funding, handing pro-lifers in the state a major victory 3 years after the law was passed. Former Republican Governor John Kasich signed the law, which prohibits money from the Department of Health going to organizations that perform or promote abortions. Planned Parenthood, the nation's largest abortion provider, gets roughly $1.5 million from this department every year. Judge Jeffrey Sutton, writing for the 11-6 majority, ruled that the law does not violate U.S. Constitution, but it does not prohibit women from obtaining abortions. The ruling overturned a lower court decision. Across the wide Pacific is a little country called China. A Chinese official says recently that the country is vowing to eliminate Christianity. This according to the Christian Post. This fellow's name I cannot pronounce is head of the National Committee of the Three Self-Patriotic Movement of the Protestant churches in China. And he says there are problems with Christianity in the country, calling the religion an infiltration. He said we must recognize that Chinese churches are surnamed China, not the West. the actions by anti-China forces that attempt to affect our social stability or even subvert the regime of our country are doomed to fail, he said. He is worried that Christianity is a Western influence that is not best for our country, meaning China. This week we read about Wendy Napoles. Wendy is the mother of Desmond, and she says that her 11-year-old son is nothing less than amazing. Desmond is an 11-year-old drag queen who now infamously danced in a gay nightclub, apparently in New York City, while adults threw dollar bills at him. Desmond donned a blonde wig, high heels, girl's crop top, and full makeup while dancing provocatively to two songs that are named I don't know. And did this at the $3 Bill Club in Brooklyn in December. The $3 Bill Club. Clearly a homosexual outfit. There was a predictable outcry after the performance, which was shared on social media. In addition, according to a Brooklyn newspaper, Mama said these haters filed more than 150 complaints with the city's administration for children's services. She said, "We have been accused of child abuse, exploitation, and maltreatment to the point that we have been backed into a corner trying to defend ourselves." Napoles wrote earlier this week on the Desmond is Amazing Instagram page what she administers. She said recently a YouTube video was made stating that we should allow the administration for children's services, apparently part of the Child Protective Services Department, to investigate if we have nothing to hide, which we have done, since we do not have anything to hide. We have been under a microscope since early December. She said, "I never thought I would have to breach my own privacy and confidentiality to provide proof that has been demanded of us out of malice," apparently referencing their efforts to prove they're not unfit parents. Now, to underscore her point, Napoles posted 10 images on Instagram showing 2 letters and envelopes from authorities exonerating her and presumably her husband, Andy, who also supports the boys' drag pursuits. Now, the point here is that the Protective Services of New York seem to know less than average people with children. They're supportive of this nonsense. They're supportive of this dangerous practice by an 11-year-old boy. Either that or they just don't care. This sort of behavior, especially being acted out in front of adults who gather for such entertainment, is clearly dangerous. And you have to ask yourself, where did this kid get this idea? And who is it that took him to this place? Oh, the same parents who are not exonerated by the protective government agencies, I should say now exonerated by the protective government agencies, at least the state version. Welcome to Bizarro World. And what about the homeless? Do you care about the homeless? Americans at large feel very strongly about the homeless. They are both sorry for them and they worry about them. An adventurer and Guinness World Record holder took to the streets of Great Britain. He wanted to find out just how panhandlers were treated. How are they doing? His excursion has revealed that living on the UK's streets was far more lucrative than he imagined. Ed Stafford is his name. He's a former Army captain, Amazon trekker. Spent 2 months being homeless in Glasgow, Manchester, and London. He found that as well as gaining 11 pounds, and that's because passers-by kept giving him fast food sandwiches and burgers, that he could also make up to 200 pounds sterling a night. What the article estimated was at least in the neighborhood of $260 a day. That's almost $30 an hour, 8-hour day. Ed's conclusion is he would not give directly to homeless people anymore, but does believe they need a great deal more support to help them escape their situation. I wonder what the numbers are here in this country. I remember years ago, decades ago now, when I lived near New York City, there was a fellow who did the same thing. Was on the streets for 6 hours every day with his tin cup out. And at some point, somebody followed him when he left and found out that he walked away a fairly good distance, got in his Rolls Royce that was chauffeur driven, and drove off, only to come back the next day. That is not to say there aren't some real serious problems with some people on the streets in our cities, and maybe more so in the outlying districts, but my goodness, that's amazing.